Hey, bet you wouldn't expect to see a long form video after that 11-month hiatus. Sorry about the long wait, but I do plan to be more consistent about my Elden Ring content. Anyways, you've seen the title and thumbnail, so let's just get started. With the NightLord being the main NightLord that you need to kill to end the night, and him being capable of using powers of the other NightLords, he should just be stronger than them and would scale above the entities absorbed into the night. Therefore, he would scale above ancient dragons, godric, and starry beasts, as they're all bosses that can spawn from the night. And with his Great Ruin being similar to an actual Great Ruin, this would make sense. The knight is implied to have destroyed the herb tree or at least greatly affected it, which is above any characters that you can fight prior to Farum Azula. It is stated to be impenetrable to a tarnish that can beat the likes of Morgott, Renala, Moog, Rykard, Radha, and even Melania in her goddess Ra form. And if you argue it's more of a hacks instead of a strength thing, to be capable of affecting the herb tree, his hacks should just far surpass the demigods, with him destroying Seb herb tree, even when Death and Death shouldn't have been put back in the lands between. That is an insane feat for him capable of doing, so either way how you interpret it, he should just be above the demigods I mentioned. I believe the NightLord being at this level is perfectly fine, with him heavily implied to be the Nox's Lord of Night, which was supposed to be the version of the Golden Order's Elden Lord. That should mean he should be comparable to Radagon or Godfrey. Now, I don't exactly think he's quite as strong as them, as the amp from his Ruin is similar to a singular Great Ruin. He should be at least in the same tier. This would make sense, as the Nox's Lord of Night should be comparable to the Finger-Slaying Blade, which is meant to hurt any vassal of the Greater Will, including Elden Lord or the God Marika. So I believe he should be above the high-tier demigods like a Prime Radon, Goddess of Rot, Melania, Morgott, etc., and be comparable but definitely weaker than the likes of Radagon or Godfrey. The NightLord should scale above everything absorbed by it, which includes falling star beasts who can create a large town level craters and survive. He should also scale above Radha and somewhat to Consort Radon due to him being the Nox's version of the Elden Lord. Pre-Radha is anywhere from island to large island, as all the stars we see should be at the very least be meteors, with one of them being capped at mountain level at 118 megatons. There are anywhere from 100 to 641 of these meteors, so just multiplying these numbers to get large island or island level, depending which one you use. The NightLord should have somewhat scale to Radon and God Mikola, who have a large country level calc with the light they produce. However, the night created by the NightLord is where the scaling gets really impressive due to it's stated to be a threat to the whole world. At worst, a storm affecting the entire planet that can cause damage to the surface of it and can erase its history should be multi-continental, or in those planetary ranges depending how you calculate a storm that affects the planet. It should just outright be a storm due to having rain and lightning and such. However, if you want to take it literally, then it would just be planetary. Also, it's on a global scale, with all the other NightLord's bosses being from outside the lands between. However, this isn't where it ends. Renala is capable of creating a dimension filled with stars and possibly galaxies, as the moon and Ronnie's ending shows that galaxies do in fact exist, and her creating a stated night sky naturally should include celestial bodies in that dimension like the moon, planet, and stars, which would likely include such galaxies. So you could argue the feat is bare minimum multi-solar to multi-galaxy. But you could go even further with a uni-scaling, as it's directly stated to be a universe created by magic, which would either make it uni to uni plus if you believe she's also creating the space-time depending on your definition. You're using, as some definitions just say the universe is all physical matter, while NASA says it includes that plus time. Also, she is just flat out creating it. It states multiple times due to conjuring the night, and it's a physical pocket dimension you can interact with. This type of scaling should be consistent, as I believe the Knight destroyed the herb tree in this timeline, with the game telling us it no longer exists, and the Knight threatens to wipe out the history of the lands between, which would primarily include the herb tree. The herb tree is stated to be impenetrable, which I believe is the case, which would make it infinite 3D, going off the lower end of Renala's creation feat, as nothing can break it through it at this point, not even characters like Renala who can create universes. This would be further backed up by us needing to go out and use the power from outer gods who are higher dimensional beings and would be able to burn an infinite 3D durability structure. If you believe the NightLord is related to the Nox, who also study astronomy like the Carians, the Knight should have consistency of being high universal, with the Knight destroying the herb tree and affecting the whole universe, with it just outright stating to have a limitless reach and can affect all things. With this, you could argue it would be capable of affecting the whole Elden Ring universe to a limitless, infinite extent, therefore adding consistency to this level. If you think this is crazy or even too high for Elden Ring characters, remember the NightLord is supposed to be the Noxus version of the Elden Lord who possessed the Elden Ring, which can outright affect the whole universe, such as removing the concept of death entirely. With the NightLord having a similar title to him possessing something akin to a Great Rune, which is a part of the very thing that can alter the concepts in the universe, I think it's perfectly reasonable for him to be at this level. However, Heolstor doesn't just stop at affecting the Elden Ring universe. We see the Knight is capable of absorbing the Dark Souls universe and the bosses in it. Now, based off of what the official Dark Souls Twitter says in the Knight, ancestral foes await remnants of a fire that once burned bright, which can either be interpreted as the Dark Souls games occurring in the same universe as Elden Ring, just in the past, or is it a different universe entirety, and the Knight is consuming the bosses in the past due to the ancestral foe statement implying the bosses are from the past. I'll go over both interpretations. For the first one of the Dark Souls universe existing in the past, in order for the Knight to bring in and consume characters like the Nameless King, it would not only be affecting the physical universe, but also affecting time itself, in order to absorb past enemies from different time periods. This would put the NightLord at Universal Plus, with him be able to greatly affect and threaten to consume the physical universe, but also with the time, the bosses from the past being absorbed. With the second interpretation, he should still be affecting time of the Dark Souls universe due to implying that even within the context of the verse, the Knight is absorbing bosses from the past. Using that logic, he should be affecting the time space of both the Elden Ring universe and the Dark Souls universe, which would be low multiversal due to it being two space times, and the Knight just absorbing such things that whatever it consumes becoming part of the Knight. The Knight absorbing both the time and space of the universe is consistent with the beliefs of Libre, who believes that the Knight is a thing of fairness, equanimity, I don't know how to say that. It brings balance with it swallowing all. Already established, the Knight can absorb the physical universe, which is inherently connected with time as a temporal dimension. If the Knight was just absorbing space and not time, with both of them being linked, it would not be fair, which would go against Libre's beliefs. But we already know he believes the Knight is all these things, and with him being a NightLord, he should have a pretty idea of how it operates. So you could use that for consistency. You could also use the old pocket watch, which also implies the Knight affects time, with it stating that the watch only tells twisted time and it implying the Knight is causing it. So in conclusion, on a mid-ball scaling, he's anywhere from Unity to low multiversal ranges of power and durability, AP and DC. He would outright scale to this in AP and durability, as he's creating and controlling the Knight, and in Elden Ring you can use magic to amp your physical, so he would scale to it in every regard. Now you could technically argue higher, however those arguments don't come from Heolstor himself and instead other characters, so I'll just save those arguments for my tarnished video. The NightLord should naturally scale above everything absorbed inside the Knight and other weaker aspects of the Knight, so he should just be faster or as fast as the Gaping Jaw, who attacks are just lightning based, and above ancient dragons who can outright react and grab these lightning attacks. This would make the NightLord massively hypersonic plus. The NightLord with his status should be fairly above weak incantations that can be used by the Nightfarer, so he should be able to react to light and speed incantations or weapons produced by Moonveil or Discus of Light that are just outright stated to shoot out waves of light that move at light speed. The Knight can also absorb meteor flowers that can just outright call down beams of light. With the NightLord being above all this, he should just be speed of light or faster. A common debunk of this is that Concert Radahn seemingly have his light speed attack impressive. However, it's not just talking about combat speed, but it's also talking about how fast he's traveling. Radahn is the only one showing he can outright move at light speed, so that would just make his travel speed the best. Other attacks can still be light speed. The said characters that can use them just wouldn't be capable of traveling at such speeds. Even then, you can argue the NightLord should just somewhat scale to the speed. The Knight itself is where the scaling gets crazy. Once again, the Knight is constantly said to be endless or having balanced potential, and in the previous section I argue it could affect the whole universe, which is just be MFTL plus, which is consistent with Renala's magic, capable of expanding and creating a universe. But if you take it literally, it would have infinite speed because it was created, then was able to sprint an endless amount of distance, which would be infinite speed. Such levels shouldn't be anything new, as Placidu Sack to the NightLord should scale to some degree, is capable of existing and moving in a realm above or outside of linear time, depending how you argue it. It would range from infinite to immeasurable speed, giving the NightLord these speeds consistent. Heolstor can damage and perceive the soul and should be able to absorb them into the night, with it absorbing multiple bosses who live in death. And all Elden Ring characters can just interact with spirit attributes, which are just the soul. He's capable of using the previous boss's powers, such as ice, fire, sleep, and lightning manipulation, with him capable of even using the Libri's frenzy flame abilities, which is just outright capable of destroying souls and concepts. But I don't believe he's strong enough to burn things on a conceptual level, as the Elden Ring should still be above him. He can fly and even resurrect people from the dead, as the knight was able to resurrect the recluse's dead friend. He also has limited mind manipulation, as he's able to make the Nightfarers forget things, but I don't know how much of a degree he has it, but he does have it. He can also do whatever the fuck this is. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I put a lot of research in versus to find his scaling. So if there was something I missed, I'd appreciate it if you guys mentioned it in the comments. I do plan to do more Elden Ring long-form videos, so I'd also appreciate it if you left suggestions, because I'd probably do them anyways, because I have like only 3 videos planned. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed my video, and have a good day.